A firm commitment to turn around the power utility Eskom was made as early as 2020. At the time, social partners comprising government, labor, business and civil society met at the National Economic Development and Labor Council, NEDLAC, and they said that a great deal, they're saying, of progress has been made, such as more certainty in the scheduling of load shedding and the entry of private power producers into the system. But challenges of generation, labor disputes and maintenance backlogs have drawn an ear of society at large. Joining us now to discuss whether Eskom can truly be turned around are Elias Seftel, an executive director at NEDLAC, Business Unity South Africa's head of energy and climate change, Khambule, and the Black Business Council president, Elias. Good evening, and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. Happy, let me start with you. Eskom is not performing, or at least, shall we say, delivering on its core mandate. The question is, who should be held accountable?
Good evening to you and good evening to all the viewers. I mean, to be honest, we're in a state where everything and anyone can be blamed. I mean, the government has just come out right now and said that they should not be blamed. And I say this because I believe Minister Gwede was reading from the cabinet memo that was just released recently. I honestly think that the problem right now is really one which is of a legacy kind, but also that we haven't taken the urgent steps and the very hard decisions. Part of that, yes, is in the hands of Eskom. Part of that is within government, but also part of that is within the social partners not pushing maybe hard enough, because as we're finding out right now that the problem is actually so dire that the economy can't stand still in just a moment's notice. It's not like we didn't know load shedding was coming. We had the schedule, we had the forecasts, but we didn't think it was going to be this bad. And just to reiterate something that is pretty amazing is that this is the second time in 7 months we've had stage 6. And that gives an indication of how dire the situation is becoming. So I can't say it's one particular party or one particular person or one particular group of people that can be blamed. It's really something that we have to take collective responsibility on and start to chart a way forward that's going to address it. And some of these steps are going to be hard decisions and extreme measures.
The situation at Eskom in April, we heard from one of the board members, which of course started a whole lot of dust on the ground, was that the current management and the board are not going to be the fall guy for, and I quote here, an ANC-led government mess. Who should be held accountable?
Good evening to Lisa and Happy and the viewers. I think we need to be honest and transparent when we deal with the issues of Eskom, because it starts with leadership. I mean, we cannot beat about the bush on these matters. I'm saying everything starts and stops with leadership. I mean, we have raised the question around Eskom leadership not even yesterday. I mean, a few months ago, that we don't have competent people at Eskom at the level of leadership. Now, if you then want to continue with a plethora of excuses that we have load shedding for rollout backouts and all the related issues, I mean, it's not resolving anything, because part of the problem is that we might think we are sitting at load shedding 6. There are areas that they spend like 3-4 days without electricity in any form or shape. And I'm saying we cannot then say now we are at level 6. I'm saying there are areas where they don't have electricity for days and weeks. Now that's part of the problem, because if you don't have electricity, you cannot even press a pump to push water, because you need pressure to do those things. And I'm saying you then have industries that they're not functioning in any form or shape. Whether you want to talk about restaurants, you want to talk about steel industries, you want to talk about bakeries, you want to talk about anything under the economy, it basically means then the recovery is not going to take place or any shape in any form. You are then saying if government, again, they're not willing to draw a line in the sand and basically says the current leadership, they're not delivering at Eskom, and therefore we need to find a different leaders. And that's part of the problem. And then I think for us, we have stated categorically that the CEO, the board, and the executive team, including, I guess, even the minister, which is Godan, because Monage deals with policy issues. There's nothing to do with these aspects. And I'm saying those are the people that must take the fall. And then I'm saying we are firm and we are consistent on this matter, to the extent that we have even moved beyond just talking, because we are now even galvanizing the social, the civil organizations, whether trade unions and other civic organizations, to say, can we basically then have a conversation to say, where are we then taking this country? I mean, we're not going to fold our arms seeing the country being plunged into the gutters. And I'm saying that is the extent where we are now. We are basically saying if it means we are going to organize a mass mobilization and shut the economy until the leadership of Eskom, they basically then tender the resignation, we are going to do that. And I'm saying it is not a threat, we are going to do it.
Lisa, what decisions has the current management and board at Eskom in their tenure made that they should be held accountable for, in as far as putting us in the current mess that we're in?
Well, I don't think I can really be qualified to talk about that. You know, what we have been doing in NEDLAC with organized labor, with business, with community organizations and with government is trying to look, as I think Happy was saying, you know, realizing that this requires a collective effort to solve some of these problems. And, you know, one of the issues that the social partners have been strong about in Eskom is the need for it to turn itself around and to address some of the, as Happy said, the legacy problems around corruption and so on. And, you know, in the views of the social partners who meet together at NEDLAC, there has been some progress. But obviously the more pressing problem of the lack of sufficient generation capacity is what we are now all seized with. And the solution, as Happy says, to that is not only the responsibility of Eskom, it is the responsibility of all of us to increase generation and in particular. And, you know, what's also been discussed at NEDLAC is that the generation that we need to increase cannot only be from coal power stations, but needs increasingly be from renewables. And the government is putting in place a roadmap to enable renewable generation that can feed into the grid, as well as enable self-generation for certain sectors of the economy. I hope I'm being helpful there.
Happy, there are two quite important issues which are being raised, which I suppose the Black Business Council is calling also these are excuses that are being made around load shedding. One is that there is an increase in suspicious breakdowns, and two, there is not an increase, but there is, of course, a high number of delinquent municipalities who continue not to pay Eskom. How much of that is playing into the kind of challenges that we are seeing right now?
I mean, from the point of departure of saying that this is a complex problem, and all these things are contributing to the complex situation that we're sitting in. So on the one hand, as you say, that you've got municipalities that are not paying because whether they don't have the money or they're just not paying because they just don't feel like they need to. You also got situations where even when there is an intervention that has been designed and that has been put forward, whether it's extending the grid to areas where there is generation capacity so that we can evacuate that power, you find that land invasion occurs, or you find that there is some version of subversion of servitudes that have been granted, and then you find that there's actually theft and vandalism. But then you also have on the other side where customers are not paying at the same time, and then you have the internal pressures within Eskom where like even a simple example where not so long ago, one of the plant managers went to a plant, made an inspection, and then the next day, one of the same boilers or one of the same equipment fell to be malfunction, was found to be malfunctioning again. So there are myriad of issues that are converging, not only just because of the age of the plant, not only because of the cost of the actual fuel, not only because we don't have enough grid capacity, but because also the end user has also got a particular kind of behavior, and the others, other factors that are there. So I think it's very complex. But to boil it down and say we have to find one particular scapegoat, I think is a bit easy. And I don't think anyone is wrong in saying this is one of the problems. I think there's so many problems that we need to take a step and say, at this point in time, we're in an emergency situation. We need to fix the problem right now, and then we'll take the process of actually finding out who at worst is the holder of the can at the bottom end of the road.
But then does the current leadership have at their disposal already now, not in the future, tools that they can use to eliminate this particular situation, and therefore they are not using them? Like, they've always had these, but they just don't have a clue of how to use them, and therefore they're incompetent in what they're doing.
I think no.
Lisa?
I think no, but please.
Yes. You know, I really don't think that we wish the problem was as simple as that, because then the solution would be as simple as that, as the BBC is saying. It's about leadership. But actually, the stakeholders are many more. And I think even the CEO of Eskom has been on record to say that if there was speedier, what they call structural reforms, changes to the regulatory environment of energy, then the problem could also be addressed. So there's not one stakeholder here that needs to solve this problem. It is a multi-stakeholder solution that is required.
Yeah. Tata Monage, the social partners are not in agreement with you. It cannot be just one person who's going to solve this problem.
I don't agree with, remember, Lisa is not a stakeholder. Lisa works for the stakeholders. She works for the parties at NEDLAC. And some of the issues, I guess, for her it will be a career-limiting move to basically says the issues that I'm raising. And I'm frank.
We're in a crisis. We're not talking about career-limiting moves.
No, I'm saying to you, a crisis requires leadership, Lisa. I'm saying you can go to any management textbooks or any schools of leadership. I'm saying anything starts with leadership. Now, if we then want to talk about options and policy implementation, it requires leadership. It requires somebody that takes the bull by its horn. You require somebody that draw a line in the sand to say, these are the things that you're going to do. We don't have such a leader at Eskom. And we have people that, firstly, they're not competent. We have people that they are forever telling us excuses. And that is the point that we have raised not now. We have raised this thing consistently. And that's the reason why I'm saying we cannot then come here today on Wednesday and then argue that, everybody must then take the blame as social partners. I'm saying that is not on, because we don't run Eskom. There are people that they are employed and paid to run Eskom, and if they're not competent, we need them to draw a line in the sand. It's like whether you are a coach of an organization, you are a CEO of an organization, you are a president of a country, you are a leader. You must take decisions, whether those decisions are hard, but you need them to make a call. And I'm saying to you, all those issues that we have raised, I mean, the investor confidence is continue to be eroded because people don't have any confidence in the country. Because for you to invest and run an operation, you require energy that is sustainable. And we don't have such a thing as things stand now. Equally so, you even talk about education. You send kids to school. You require them to have electricity or energy in an informal shape. Now, Lisa, you're sitting in the dark because we don't have electricity. And I'm saying it's not about, leadership is about planning. If up until to this day, we don't have an infrastructure that we continue to maintain, that's part of the problem because we do have an aging infrastructure. Nobody dispute that point. But the key question is, what is the frequency of us maintaining that thing? I cannot maintain it, you cannot maintain it. The Eskom people must then do that. Then the same Eskom leadership, they cannot then come today and say, workers have embarked on strike. Workers have embarked on strike before even the current management, they joined Eskom. And Eskom, they continue to provide electricity in any form or shape. Now, we cannot then use hence we are saying those are plethora of excuses every time to say we're having this problem, people are stealing cables. People have stolen cables before, but it doesn't mean that we cannot then put a blind eye and say they must continue to do nothing. It then means we need them to provide security. We need them to do a risk medicating to say, how do you then medicate the risk? How do you then secure our infrastructure?
All right, let's have the other partners jump in here as well in the conversation. Lisa, are there any interventions worth noting? With the fear of sounding like, no, these people have done nothing, absolutely nothing. Are there any interventions that are worth noting that are working towards ensuring cost-effective and reliable supply of energy?
I think there are. Just for example, the CEO of Eskom announced last week that there were 18 projects. I think there are for independent power producers where they are going to produce energy and put it into the grid on land that is owned or going to be leased from Eskom. I think that is an exciting initiative. There are also, as a result of changes to the regulatory framework, many more people in the private sector, which I think Happy can talk to, who are beginning to be involved in self-generation. There are also initiatives, for example, to address the big problem of cable theft, which does put people, without electricity, and that's often the responsibility of municipalities. And then at a municipal level, both the city of Cape Town and the city of Johannesburg, and I think there's a third city that is looking seriously at changing and reforming the way in which they provide power, enabling self-generation, looking at solar, as well as significant partnerships with alternative energy providers. I hope those are some examples.
Happy, please, you can come in here. Two issues that, for example, the Black Business Council is raising. One, backlog in maintenance. They're saying they're not sure whether there's evidence that this is being done, that any form of maintenance, yes, the fleet is old. Is the fleet being maintained? Is there a sense that that is happening? Two, is there some counter criminal act of sabotage measure that is being put in place?
All right. I think maybe let's start with the last one. I think we're talking about national key points here. All the infrastructure that Eskom owns, particularly with the substations, the transmission lines, and the plants themselves. So when someone damages that, they're taking a particular kind of act against the state because this is a particular key point. I'm not sure as well why, from the other side of the coin, where law enforcement should be more hard, that there isn't that kind of a reaction to it. And it's not necessarily saying that it's not law enforcement's fault or anything, but what I'm trying to give an indication of is that because of the complexity of the issue, you have a situation where you know precisely that there's a particular act that is happening, you know who the person is or the group of people, but there isn't any repercussions, and that gives birth to a new kind of behavior. And we know the extent of patronage that has occurred in Eskom, and that continues to occur, but we are knowingly working as if it's not there, and that it doesn't contribute to the problem. So there is an issue in that regard. But when we talk about the solutions that have been there, is that the current Eskom leadership, as much as they've tried to work over the constraints of particular regulatory frameworks, and they've tried to provide some form of guidance into saying that they can't do anything else now regarding generation. And to me, it sounds like they've reneged the responsibility to undertake generation, right? And because of the power plants are so old, and we're talking about power plants that are continuously getting older and continuously breaking down with acts of potential sabotage or potential negligence. We don't know what's going on. We need to go through the whole forensic process. But with all of that, it becomes worse and worse because it's not like the age is getting better. Even Modupe and Kusile aren't providing the power that is necessary at the rate that they were built for. So we've got a myriad of issues. And this is why I say it's not just a question of the leadership. It's not just a question of the past administration. It's not the current. It's not all of that. We just have to take a moment right now and say, let's fix the problem. And then we can diagnose what has happened and figure out how we're going to deal with it, just like we're doing with the Zondo Commission or any other commission of inquiry that occurs. But we have to get to a point where we're like, we've had enough. Let's just fix the problem. And if we have to make the hard decisions, and some of them might be as the BBC is saying, and some of them might be as civil society is saying, depending on whichever voice is more rational or is louder and makes much more sense, then we make that decision, but we have to fix the problem. We can't keep on going in this direction. But the private sector is there to contribute and to intervene when necessary, especially with more generation, because some of the plants that are there have a cap on them because of the licensing conditions. And actually, they can provide much more power. It's just that there are conditions that are there that can stifle what is actually brought and evacuated onto the grid. So the opportunities are there and the interventions are there.
And Dr. Elias, literally I have 2 minutes left. In the context of an inherited, hollowed out institution captured by corruption and so on and so forth, high cost of debt that is there, numerous operational inefficiencies, and the work that we need to do. Is black business willing to come on board and assist?
I'm saying, I think I've said this thing not once, and I'm repeating for the last time. I'm saying to you, we have drawn the line in the sand. We are basically saying enough is enough, the horse has bolted. We've raised a number of issues and we're saying the fish rot from the head. I mean, this is about leadership, planning, maintenance and everything, and rescheduling. It basically requires leadership then to do these things. And every day somewhere in the country, there are people that their appliances are damaged because of this load shedding and rollouts and blackouts and whatever that you want to call it. We have an increase of unemployed people in the country, and we don't have the luxury to deal with the increase of unemployed, the poverty that continue then to widen between the rich and the poor, the inequalities that the country also then continue to increase. And hence we're saying, where we are standing now as an organization, together with other civil movements and organizations, we are at the space where we are going to have a meeting and then agree on the way forward in terms of saying, if in an event where we have made a call for the resignation of the board, the resignation of the executive, and including even Minister Godan, what next then do we do? If it means then we need then to follow the normal channel, which is Section 77, where we submit an application to NEDLAC, then we basically then embark on a general strike. We've done this thing before as a country. It's not a new thing and it's not a threat. And I'm saying that is basically where we are. I guess some of you have seen even the letter from SAFTU. I'm not their spokesperson, but we talk, we share information. And everybody in the country saying we cannot then continue seeing workers continue not to earn a salary because they work 4 hours, they work 3 hours. There are days where they don't even work because we don't have the power in various sectors of the economy. We have the restaurant that is basically at the brink of a collapse.
All right. We are pressed for time, but we get the point. I appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming on. Lisa Seftel, Elias Monage, as well as Happy Khambule. Thank you very much for coming on.